Well, the countdown continues in Hong Kong, and while this is a holiday weekend here in Canada, it is going to be a very long and very festive weekend in Hong Kong. We go there now live, where the CBC's Ian Hanaman Singh is standing by. And Ian, although I am sure there is an air of festivity in the air, there is also some concern prompted by news of troop movements. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, well, Kevin, here we are on Saturday morning in the midst of a 4- or 5-day holiday, depending on where people work. A very rare break for in this city that never sleeps. But there is some sobering news. It was announced early on Friday morning, yesterday Hong Kong time, by the outgoing British Governor Chris Patten. He made public for the first time that about 4,000 troops from the PLA, the People's Liberation Army from China, would be rolling across the border early on the morning of July 1st. So that will be Monday night, Vancouver time. And as Tom Kennedy reports, Governor Patten says that troop movement is sending the wrong signal.
The Hong Kong governor made what may be his last foray into the streets of this colony today. He met people at a temple and learned a little more about a culture that he and his government are about to lead. And at a brief meeting with the media, another criticism of his successors. The 4,000 Chinese troops arriving here next week are less than half the number the British used to station here, but Patten says, with a large chunk of the population nervous about Chinese rule, and with the whole world watching, the timing of the troop arrival could hardly be worse.
That doesn't seem to me to be the right sort of signal to send to the international community, and above all, I think it's a most unfortunate signal to send to people in Hong Kong.
Patten does have an outspoken nature. After a century and a half of British autocracy here, he introduced democracy. China has called him a snake, a prostitute. But here in the colony, he's seen as a welcome change from his autocratic, pompous British predecessors. And generally, people like him. And as the countdown continues, there's a real feeling here that what is happening is a moment in history, and there's a unique chance to be a witness to it. This morning, the Black Watch Regiment and the final changing of the guard of British rule in Hong Kong.
It's sad, really. We're handing it over, but it's what we said we would do when we took the lease. Being British, we're honourable.
Well, they're part of history. So we think part of history going off Hong Kong.
What about just a handful of soldiers and a very old ceremony, but hundreds came out to see it. The next time it happens, it will be with the soldiers of the People's Republic of China. Tom Kennedy, CBC News, Hong Kong.
Well, obviously the handover is of great political importance around the world and here in Asia in particular. But history of a different kind is being made, perhaps a more mundane kind. There is more media here than any major event in recent history. For example, almost 3 times the amount of accredited journalists here than were in Atlanta for the Olympics 1 year ago. But the media frenzy is not just happening in Hong Kong, it's happening around the world. And as Alan Waterman reports, there is a lot of media attention in Vancouver as well.
They're talking more than just vegetable prices in Vancouver's Chinatown. On Monday morning, 8 o'clock Vancouver time, when Hong Kong changes hands, many will have their ears and eyes tuned.
So Monday morning at 8 o'clock, you'll be
stay at home and watching the TV?
I don't know, watching TV? I will be stay home.
Watching TV?
Yes.
Everybody's watching the TV?
Yes.
When they say TV, this is what they mean. The Cantonese stations, Fairchild and Talent Vision. Both in the same building, both owned by the same company, both broadcasting round the clock for the Hong Kong handover.
From the 29th of June to the 1st of July, we will have 3 days non-stop broadcast, and of which more than 30 hours satellite feeds from Hong Kong about Hong Kong handover.
Each station will be hooking into Hong Kong and Beijing television feeds, as well as providing local stories and discussion groups. More than 30 hours without a break.
I think we cannot sleep through the June 30 until the 1st of July. Yeah, we cannot sleep. Yeah.
Other than sleep, there is a concern about what Hong Kong TV may or may not show under the new masters. To cover that, Fairchild has 3 of its own reporters on the scene. As well, both stations are monitoring and using stories from CNN.
We try to have a balanced view that something come from CNN. That makes the program, that makes the whole event looks better and more balanced.
It's a good bet everyone in Vancouver's Chinese community will be tuned into the 2 local stations. Well, most.
We'll be working.
You'll be working.
We'll be working.
Alan Waterman, CBC News, Vancouver.
And we rejoin Ian Hannamansing in Hong Kong right now. Ian, you've covered a lot of different stories in your time as a reporter, but have you ever covered anything quite like this? And is there an element of surrealism about all of this?
Well, I think so, Kevin. I was trying to think of an analogy because I've never covered an event, as you suggest, that combines being such a momentous moment in history on the one hand, and yet on the other hand being something that has been scheduled ever since 1984 when the Chinese and British sat down and agreed on the handover. Perhaps, I guess, New Year's Eve 1999 will be something like this, where people keep waiting and waiting and waiting for something momentous to happen, and they know it's coming. The difference between this and New Year's Eve 1999 is that there will in fact be a big change happening at the stroke of midnight. Some people are saying this story has been overhyped, but I think we cannot exaggerate the importance of the change here from British rule to Chinese rule. It may not be evident in the first few hours of the morning of July 1st, the evening of June 30th in Vancouver, but certainly in the first few days after the handover, this story I think will become even more significant.
And that's when some of the more interesting reporting work will begin. Ian, thanks for joining us tonight.
You're welcome.
And CBC, of course, will be covering the handover live on Monday morning, bright and early, beginning with the lowering of the British flag, starting at 3 a.m. our time on News World. And then at 8 a.m. our time, which will be midnight in Hong Kong, both News World and the CBC main channel will carry the official handover to China with Prince Charles representing Britain. And, of course, we'll have extensive coverage on Broadcast 1 at 6.